Hey, it's Ron McLean. Welcome to Hockey Talk on the Rock.
With Laura and Keith.
It's interesting.
So let's back up a second.
He played absolutely out of his mind.
It made no sense to me.
And now, here are your hosts.
Here we go. Here we are doing Hockey Talk on the Rock again. It is Sunday, September the 26th, all day long. Doing it via Zoom. Laura is in Lethbridge, Alberta. I'm still on the Rock. And we are going to talk about some stuff because we haven't done this probably, 3 or 4 weeks?
Yeah, there's been a lot of big events between our last episode and now.
Yeah, I mean, big events as far as they go for summer, I guess. It was long enough amount of time that we got some stuff. So
yeah,
I know you're itching. You're itching to talk Canucks. You got your Canucks jersey on.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's do some Canucks talk.
Alrighty, so obviously the biggest storyline that you can't avoid talking about when you talk about the Canucks right now is the fact that both Pettersson and Hughes still haven't signed a contract. Pettersson has left Vancouver, gone to Michigan. He's training with Hughes down there. And I mean, this is a big deal. I'm trying not to overreact to it, but if you look at the team, and I mean, from Benning's perspective, right, he knows that this is really his last shot. If they don't make the playoffs this year, he's done.
Yeah.
So signing those two guys has to be a priority, but he also can't mess it up so that in the long term the team is screwed. So it's a tricky spot, and the players hold all the cards because it is the two basically most important players to the team, and without the two of them, this team is not going to be competitive. Like, they might be competitive, I shouldn't say that, but they're just not going to be as good. And the kind of double part of that is there's a bunch of Canucks veterans right now who are going to miss the start of camp. So, like, Brandon Sutter has some fatigue issue, which I don't know if it's like long haul COVID related or if it's just something else. I don't know if he's going to be good to go to start the season. Tyler Mott is not. And then I don't know what's going on with Travis Hamonic either. So it's just like there's a lot of players that are already going to be missing the start of the season. If you take out Pettersson and Hughes on top of that, the team is going to have a way harder time. So, yeah, I mean, until they sign, it's really hard to
hard not to fixate on it, but I mean, it's kind of how the pattern goes when it comes to these guys like Horvat and Besser were right through camp.
Yeah.
Or, so I feel like it's just one of those things that it's Jim's move, but I kind of feel like they're both going to end up walking away with like 3-year deals, and they're going to kick this down the road to have to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like with the Kaprizov deal, right, if that's the comparable for Pettersson, then they kind of have to go shorter term because I don't think they can give him 9.5 right now with also having to sign Hughes.
Yeah.
The
Dahlin contract in Buffalo, which
yes.
we can talk about in a bit, kind of threw a little bit of a wrench, I think. It probably propped up the price for a bridge for Hughes a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I kind of agree with you. I have a feeling they're going to figure it out. I'm not that worried about them missing time, but it is like it's worrying to think about if they do miss a bit at the start of the season, right?
Yeah, because, well, I mean, as a franchise as a whole, like, this is a pretty important year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is kind of interesting that they are letting it go as far as it is. But, yeah, I guess you got to play hardball when it comes to the money situation too, right?
Yeah. And, like, kind of switching, I guess, out of Pettersson and Hughes, like some other notes from the camp is that evidently Jack Rathbone has looked very good and Uelevi has not looked very good. So that kind of gives, I think, Rathbone a bit of a leg up to start with the team. And again, if Hamonic is, miss some time, I actually think that's a big hit for that back end. And yeah, the other thing too, with just players that have looked good, like evidently Gadjevich and Lockwood have also been very noticeable, and it's possible that they could both start on the team as well. As I mentioned, both Mott and Sutter are injured. And then, I mean, I don't know how much you read into preseason lines, but it is kind of interesting that they still have Miller at center.
Probably just because Petey is not in, right?
Yeah, and that makes sense. But again, like that, if Miller, Podkolzin, and Garland was a line, I do feel like I really like it. Like I feel like they'd be annoying to play against, but they're skilled enough that they'd be able to put up some points.
And then the third line would be shaped something like Dickinson, Pearson, somebody.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, like if Pettersson and Hughes sign, right, you assume that, like, I don't think you can put Horvat on the third line, so then they have to move that second line around, basically, right?
Yeah.
Because
Podkolzin or Hoglander would have to slide down to the third.
yeah, but I do like their forward depth this year a lot. I'm very optimistic about it. I think for the first time in a very long time. So that part of it's exciting. And it is good to see some of those kind of lower picks like Gadjevich and Lockwood making strides in their development, whether they make the team or not here. It's kind of exciting to even talk about them as having good camps.
Well, Gadjevich is kind of divisive because he was like an early second round pick. Like,
That's true. Yeah.
Number 34 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
He's been developing for a long time. Him and Lind were in the same boat.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice if he did break through, and like you say, maybe he'll benefit from Sutter and Mott being out and having a look. Maybe even if Petey's out, he could get a look on the third line, maybe. But
yeah,
it's been a long road for him and Lind when he was with the team, and Levy is kind of like, it's just at the point where I think everyone has to move on from the fact.
Yeah, I really don't think it's gonna happen. I had high hopes for Levy last year. I thought maybe he'll break through, but I
even had a bit of high hopes for this year, having like his first summer without like rehab for a long time.
Yeah.
But like from what I'm hearing on the radio, they're like talking about how he's like laying on his back in the corner after the big stage.
Yeah.
Other players are chirping him, telling him he's making himself look bad by doing that or whatever. But
yeah, and like speaking of the bad skate, the other kind of person that was drawing a lot of attention from their reaction was OEL. And again, I feel like kind of hypocritical here because I didn't want the Canucks to go after OEL, but when they did, I was like, okay, they've done it. And I don't actually think it's that big a deal if he can't handle like 25 minutes straight of suicides, because it's so unrelated to playing a game of hockey. Like even your like fitness system that you're using is different. So for me, I'm like, okay, if he is having such a hard time, if he was so gassed at the end of that, it's okay. But I do feel like anytime he makes a mistake now this year, that clip is what's going to be talked about.
Right.
So we'll see. It's going to be very fascinating to see what happens with him. The defense is all like, that's the worrisome part of the Canucks for me right now. But
yeah, and like you say, with Hughes, it looks a lot different, but without him, it looks pretty shaky.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like they say, Jay Beagle won the bag skate every year.
Yeah.
How much does it matter?
I don't know. Anyway, so I feel like that's all my Canuck talk right now. The other league stuff, the big story this week was more Jack Eichel stuff. So they stripped him of his captaincy, which I mean isn't that surprising because he's not going to play for them again. But I still don't fully understand why they won't just let him get the surgery that he wants. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you figure they've just got to give in, but like, I still understand that, like, why they're concerned, considering the surgery is this type that's never been done on a hockey player before.
Okay, but there's a bit of a misperception about that because it actually has been done on hockey players before, just hasn't been done on NHL players. And the actual surgery itself, if for some reason there's a problem with it, he can just get the fusion, like the one they want. That's like what you do if it doesn't work.
Oh.
So and like it's funny because I listened to this whole podcast about it, and after I listened to that, I was like, okay, now I'm really angry for Jack Eichel. Before I was kind of like you, I was like, oh, I kind of get it, but at the same time, I don't really understand what the issue is now. And yeah, like the recovery time is less for what he wants. I assume Jack Eichel really wants to play in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So that will be interesting. The whole timeline with that.
So do you think it's just one of these things now where Buffalo has just dug their heels in, is like, we've made our stance clear and we can't go back now, and they're hoping that Eichel's desire to play in the Olympics and elsewhere will like make him just fold and do what they want? Or
I think so. I that's what I think their move is, but also because that organization has been just ridiculed with how they've handled, so many different players. They know that this is really like, this is it. This is, they've messed up this era with Eichel, and they can't mess up the next one.
Right.
So yeah, but
moving on from Eichel,
yeah, moving on from Eichel.
you want to talk about, I think we've talked lots about the KK thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's old news now, right? He's in Carolina, and Montreal took those picks and picked up Dvorak. So
Yeah, I think we covered that.
yeah, I couldn't remember if it was when it happened or if it was after, but anyway.
All right, well, if not, whatever.
So yeah, as I mentioned, players now officially going to the Olympics. I don't think we talked about that. We don't have to talk about it for that long.
It was cool to start like looking at potential Team Canada lineups and stuff like that.
Yes, very exciting to have them back in the Olympics.
And I was reading a little thing about McKinnon or whatever, and he was saying that they did a mini something in Montreal this summer, like for Team Canada, and they had McDavid, Crosby playing on the line against like him and Marner, and he's like, yeah, it's not even fair.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool to see that type of stuff.
Yeah, it'll be really fun to watch the matchups for there, and then just how many kind of younger players make the Olympic team versus like, the veterans. Like I know Drew Doughty is very motivated. He says he wants to have like his best season ever because he really is irked that he's been left off those mock Team Canadas.
Right.
So it's just going to be interesting to see the dynamic with what the team looks like. Specifically Team Canada, but I mean all the teams kind of in that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Americans are going to have similar kind of decisions to make. And then, yeah, there's been a lot of injuries so far through training camp and off season here. So like both Malkin and Crosby are going to miss the beginning of the season for Pittsburgh. And I know you had Pittsburgh missing the playoffs in your mock standings, and I'm thinking maybe I should have put them lower now, because if they have a really bad start, which I mean, if Jeff Carter's like your number one center, I feel like it depends on how long those guys are going to be out, but it could be really rough for that team.
So what I read and heard was Crosby will be back probably 2 to 3 weeks in.
Okay.
This was only 6 weeks from when it happened there a week or two ago. But the coach said, I think it was yesterday, that Malkin's going to miss the first 2 months for sure.
Wow.
So yeah, they might get off to a rocky start, and then when Crosby comes back, maybe they might start to. But the Elliott Friedman, where the teams are before American Thanksgiving thing, right?
Yeah, totally.
Let's see.
And then like on a similar kind of vein, Backstrom's going to miss the start for Washington. So I feel like that division, just in terms of like the race for the playoffs, is going to be really exciting. It was going to be exciting anyway, because there's so many teams that could make it. But with those two teams having key players out to start the season, it's going to make it more interesting.
Yeah, the Backstrom one is going to be big, because then they've already got the stuff going on with Kuznetsov, and now he's their number one centerman too. So
yeah, that
could really determine their season pretty quickly. Depending, I haven't heard of the Backstrom one. How long is he supposed to be out for?
I didn't look into it in that much detail. I just know he's hurt.
Okay.
So
And then the next, I guess, two, they're kind of linked, but we'll start with your note here about Bertuzzi. When Eiserman came out to the people and said that Bertuzzi is choosing not to get vaccinated, and they're supporting him to have the choice.
yeah.
And he won't be traveling to Canada at all because it doesn't make sense. So he's gonna miss like whatever. How many games would they say?
I can only remember the money. I know he's forfeiting like $400,000 or
Yeah,
something.
it was like 13 games or something like that.
Yeah.
He's gonna miss. So I don't think they're too concerned because they don't probably plan to be just on the fringe of making the playoffs or something, and those games could make the difference. So
Yeah, he's definitely the biggest name player that's come out and said he's not getting the vaccine. So that's the part I think that's the most interesting about it for me. And I think if I was his teammate, I'd be pissed off, but probably, as you say, as a franchise, they're not as concerned because of where the franchise is at.
yeah, and then on a different vein of things, where like in Edmonton,
Oh
Archibald's getting
yeah.
totally ostracized, and I mean, I think I'd be way more mad at him because he's not a star player.
Yeah.
He's like a fringe fourth liner, and
Yeah.
willing to totally sacrifice his NHL paycheck for the year over that, and like literally being the only one on a Canadian team.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I feel like if I was McDavid or whatever, what are you doing, man? Come on.
yeah, and the other thing about Edmonton too is like Alex Stalock, right, is gonna miss the whole year because he has some heart condition that he got from having COVID. And so like if I was a teammate and I was looking at that, that would be pretty big motivation to get vaccinated.
Yeah, and I mean, aside from that too, they kind of mentioned in the write-up that like, Mike Smith and Duncan Keith, these like literally 15-year veterans of the league, were
Yeah.
like not gonna do it, and were able to be persuaded for the betterment of the team and all that by
Yeah.
the management. So again, as a younger fourth line dude, you should be able to look at those guys who, are lifelong professionals and like stepping up for the betterment of the team. Why wouldn't it's just weird.
Yeah. I do. I find it a weird situation in Edmonton. I totally forgot to even write that one down. So that's funny.
Yeah, so that's the COVID news. But we'll try to not talk too much about the COVID stuff.
Yeah. Too much.
And then you want to talk about you got some notes on UFAs that signed since we last talked, and some of them were
Yeah,
big.
so we don't have to go through like all of them, right? There's just some kind of interesting ones, and then particularly the RFAs, because I mean that's so much more relevant to the Canucks, right? But
yeah,
in the UFA kind of extension talk, we talked about Jordy Ben, I'm pretty sure. So like Connor Murphy in Chicago got 4 years at 17.6 million, which I feel like for him is quite a lot. But I guess
I think from what I read, he's like a Tanev type where he's underappreciated and he does a lot defensively for the team. So like when I saw that, I was like, if he's a Tanev type and he's younger than him, like that type of money kind of made sense to me.
That does make sense, yeah. And then after that, I think we did talk about, but the Islanders actually formally signed all the people that we kind of knew they were going to sign all summer. And then also Parise and Chara. So Chara is going to go back to his draft team, like, I don't know, 20 years after he was drafted or something like that, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And
like
then
24 years now or something.
Yeah, crazy.
And Parise, I think, is just like a love link to Lou Lamoriello, basically.
Yeah, again, that one we all kind of knew was gonna happen, and it did. And nothing there's surprising. Lou just has his own way of doing stuff. I still don't understand how they afforded to sign everyone, because I know the Islanders are right up against the cap, but I haven't looked at cap friendly since they signed everyone, so we'll see.
They're gonna be a tough team. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, they'll be good again. Yeah, Parayko in St. Louis got a big deal, 8 years, 52 million.
6.5.
6.5. I don't think the money's bad for Parayko. Maybe the term is little bit long, but
Yeah, he's older than I thought, isn't he?
yeah.
He's like 28 or 29 or something, or
Yes, I think he's 28.
right? Yeah, it's a little long, but whatever.
I mean, they didn't sign Petrangelo, right? So they got to keep
Defenseman.
some of their defensemen, and he could be their number one demon. So
And they lost Dunn in the expansion draft, so
Yeah.
that make sure
Yeah.
that so they got him and Krug basically locked up for a long time.
and then on defenseman notes, this one made both of us laugh, but Branson going to Calgary. Calgary's fascination with old Canucks continues. And I mean, this is such a Sutter signing, right? Like,
I mean, it wasn't even the fact that Goodbranson went to Calgary that made me laugh or I was surprised about it. I was like, oh yeah, I can totally see that with what
Yeah.
they're trying to do. But like the fact that it gave him a hair under $2 million, I was
I know.
man, defense are just making money this year.
Yeah, it's a good year to be a UFA defenseman for sure.
And he's on to like his 18th team now.
Yeah, he's made his way around the league. It is true, for sure.
Ever since the Canucks got him from Florida, it's been like a crazy carousel for him. It's probably literally been 8 teams.
Yeah. And then Seattle making some signings. They signed Chalowski, Sheehan, and Donato.
And so Chalowski was someone they took from Detroit in the expansion draft.
Yes.
And then the other two were just UFAs, right?
Yes. Sorry, I put them in the wrong category, but you're correct.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the signings. They're cheap. Donato could be good. Sheehan could be good. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're all low risk moves for the expansion team. The thing that's going to be interesting about Seattle that I was reading about was because they took so many defensemen in the expansion draft and they haven't flipped anyone yet. If they just send those guys down to the minors, they're going to have to clear waivers. So it's an interesting thing to watch because either they're going to have to try and flip them now, or there might be some decent like NHL defensemen on waivers, which would be, yeah.
I've kind of had this in the back of my mind throughout the summer since you and I watched the thing, because they did take a lot, and I thought they were taking players in effort to flip them, like they had pre-existing deals or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, I haven't looked on Cap Friendly, but I feel like they have 11 NHL caliber top 6 D-men.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, it will be weird. Their whole strategy has been really weird.
Yeah.
But anyways, moving on from them, I see you got the Bozak re-signing in St. Louis here.
Yeah, and I mean that's cheap fourth line, probably center for St. Louis this year. Not bad.
Yep.
And Merzlikins gets the big 5-year, $27 million contract in Columbus, and we talked about this. It's probably just you have to overpay a bit to get people to stay in Columbus. I like Merzlikins as a goalie, but he has gotten hurt. I think every year he's been in the league, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know what his upside is, right? So.
Yeah, like you say, we quickly talked about it and was like, wow, it makes the Demko deal look pretty good, except, well, Merzlikins is a little more proven. It is Columbus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's a good deal for both.
Yeah. And then the last one here for these guys is Sami Niku, who got his contract terminated by Winnipeg. He was a first-round pick for the Jets, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years ago now.
Was he? I thought I read in an article that he was like a 4th or 5th round.
Oh, really? I thought he was definitely a first round, but maybe I misread that. But anyway, they've given up on him, and he has gone to Montreal to try and win a spot on that back end. So low risk move by Montreal, 1 year, $750K. We'll see if he makes.
So, this is funny. You and I must be in the same boat, because I had him confused for another Finnish prospect defense in Winnipeg. It might even be that, what's his name? They have one that's really good in Finnish. Anyways, Niku was actually drafted in the 7th round.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, no, like same thing. When I saw him get terminated and then signed by Montreal, I was like, taking a flyer on a former first round pick. Just had it in my head, and then I read the thing, and it was like, yeah, 7th rounder. It's like, oh, who am I thinking about?
I is it Vesalainen?
Maybe. No, he's a forward, isn't he?
Oh, maybe.
There's one Finnish guy who like quarterbacked the World Juniors for Finland like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. He was a first round pick for Winnipeg, and like I think this is the guy we're thinking about.
I think so too. I'll figure it out afterwards. But anyways, jumping into the RFAs, I won't go through like everyone, but like there's a couple kind of interesting ones. Like I thought Middlestad actually did pretty well for himself with what he's proven so far at the NHL level, which hasn't been much. But I do know that last year in Buffalo, after their new coach came in, he did play a lot better, but 3 years, 7.5 mil for the whole thing. So it's not bad, right? It's not bad for what he's done.
Him and did you already mention Yoki Haru or whatever?
No, I was gonna mention him after.
So they got matching deals, I guess.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad for Buffalo. Lock up these guys who are still in their young 20s.
Yeah, Middlestad was the same draft as Pettersson.
Yeah, and Middlestat, when he was floundering a bit, he was kind of a guy that I was hoping they could maybe work a deal for 10, and then then they switched coaches and he started playing really well.
Yeah. And then your Flyers locked up Farabee for 6 years at $30 million.
I like that deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on, let me interrupt you for 1 second. It's Ville Heinola.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's the player we're thinking.
That's who I was thinking of, yeah.
Okay. Just because it was bugging me, I had to figure that out.
No, it's all good. I'm glad you did.
Okay, so back to Farabee. Yeah, I like the deal. I think he's a sniper, and he's a little inconsistent, but I think he will get better as he's getting older because he's only 22.
He's young, yeah.
So I like the deal. Five mil per. It should work out to be a pretty good deal. I hope.
And then Drake Batherson in Ottawa gets basically the same deal. 6 years at 29.85. He's a center. Is he a center or no? Now I'm confusing him with Josh Norris.
He's a winger. He's a bit bigger and he's a bit older than Farabee, I think.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a decent deal for them. He's a little bit of a late bloomer, but he seems to be playing pretty good now.
Yeah, that first line was pretty good last year for Ottawa. So we'll see. Again, they have the RFA problem as well with Tkachuk. So we'll see.
Yeah, I heard he's down in Michigan with the.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
They're all together. So let's see. And then Hronek in Detroit gets 3 years, 13.2. He's had a pretty decent couple of seasons for Detroit.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid deal right there.
Yeah. And then, obviously the offer sheet that went through for KK. Another interesting one kind of for me is Yamamoto in Edmonton gets just the 1 year at just over $1 million.
Yeah, I thought he was going to make some more money than that.
I thought so as well, but I guess he hasn't really produced as much as maybe he should have, specifically because he's played with such good players.
Yeah.
And maybe this is like a show me deal, so they have kind of a handshake agreement that if he plays really well this year, he'll get a big contract or something.
Betting on himself, why not?
But yeah, Patrick in Vegas now gets 2 years, 2.4, so just over $1 million a year. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that one.
I mean, sure, maybe it's appropriate payment for what he is because he just isn't what he was supposed to be.
No.
But again, Vegas is starving for centermen, and they have some pretty good wingers. So I don't know. Like I say, I'm gonna be angry if he starts to be an amazing player there.
Yeah.
But I kind of doubt it. I think we know what he is.
I think he's too slow. I don't think he has NHL speed, and that will hurt him. And he also has the concussion problems. But
I was gonna say the injury history is too big too.
Yeah. And then the big one was Kaprizov signing the 5 years, 45 mil. I mean, Minnesota needed that deal to be done because they would have been completely screwed after the buyouts and everything if they didn't get it wrapped up.
Yeah.
I think 9.5 is probably appropriate for Kaprizov, but he has only played the one season, so there's a bit of risk to it, right?
Isn't it 9? Isn't it?
It's not. I think is it 9? I thought it was 9.5. But I guess it would be 9. Yeah.
by 9.
Yeah. I can do that.
No, I like it. I like it for Minnesota. I feel like they weren't probably at the beginning. They were probably nowhere near that term with that money,
Yeah.
And I feel like they did a lot to make the sacrifice to keep this obviously star player.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, you've mentioned so many times last year how much you were watching Minnesota because he was such an exciting player, and like, who's the most exciting player they've ever had? Like Gabrick, maybe.
I think it's Gabrick, yeah.
And he wasn't even like the flashiest player,
No.
He had flashes, but like not every single game you were tuning in to watch fucking Marion Gabrick.
No. And I mean, he's very, like, his entry into the NHL is very Panarin-esque. And I mean, if he can be a Panarin level player for Minnesota, that would be pretty big for them.
And the fact that he's older, right? He's 24 already.
Yeah.
So like for Minnesota to be dealing with him on his next deal, or if he's gonna walk at like just before 30, like that's actually not too bad.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I hope that Vancouver doesn't copy this deal for Pettersson, because Pettersson is younger and it's a lot more different giving him 5 years than it is giving Kaprizov.
Yeah, with Petey, like we say, you kind of want that 3-year, or you want to go for the 7 or 8.
Yeah. But anyway, the next deal I actually really like. It's Thomas and St. Louis, 2 years at 5.6. I think Thomas could still be a really good player. And I think that might be a bargain deal for St. Louis. I mean, it's only 2 years, but I like it.
I think you're right. I think it's going to be a bargain deal for them. And they signed Kyrou earlier this summer for a pretty good deal. And I feel like those guys are going to be, the next guys to take over when the Perrons and all that are gone.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be really good.
Yeah. And the last two here, we already talked about Rasmus Dahlin and Buffalo getting the 3 years, $6 million a year, which is probably a little steep for what he's done so far in his NHL career. And in terms of a comparable for Quinn Hughes can say that he deserves a little bit more than that now. So not ideal for the Canucks, that one.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think I can see it going over $7 million for Hughes on a 3-year deal.
No.
Hopefully less, though.
Yeah, and then the last one, Cal Peterson signs a 3-year deal with LA for $15 million. I know that they're very sold on him as their goalie, and they have been trying to move on from Jonathan Quick. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sold on Peterson or Patterson or however you say his name.
Yeah.
Because he's an old prospect, and I know they say goalies take longer.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, like when they got him from, did they trade for him from Dallas, or am I confusing him with Jack Campbell?
You might be confusing him for Jack Campbell.
Okay. So, anyways, regardless, I don't know. He's just one of those prospects that took so long that I'm not buying it. But we'll see. LA's be good or starting to be better this year. So.
I mean, he's 26. He's played 2 years in the league now. So that's not awful for a goalie.
Yeah.
His goals against last year was 2.89. It's not terrible. Like, and I guess they just don't have anyone else in their system right now.
No.
So 3 years, it's okay. It might, again, the money might be a little bit too much for what he is. He was drafted by Buffalo.
Oh, I see.
Interesting. Anyway, yeah, so that's all the re-signing. I just wanted to throw out a couple interesting professional tryouts because there's a few.
The PTOs.
The PTOs. So the first, I think, Alex Galchenyuk gets a PTO in Arizona, which is somewhat surprising because he did have a pretty good finish to the season with Toronto. However, I think it's smart for him to go to Arizona in some ways because, well, first of all, if you're on a PTO,
he's like he's really good there.
They don't have any players. They've literally traded everyone for draft picks for this year. So you're going to get playing time. But just because you PTO with that team doesn't mean you can't sign with a different team. So if he goes and has like a noticeable preseason with them, he could sign somewhere else. So
yeah, that's a good point that you make there, because like you said, they don't have players, so he could look really, really good in the preseason.
Yeah.
And then Arizona might try to sign him, but someone else might offer him. That could be the goal, right? So could be good.
And then Nisimov in Colorado. I think that one's kind of interesting. For their bottom six.
They do need a bit of depth. Working out.
Yeah, Bobby Ryan in Detroit. I'm surprised he didn't just re-sign with Detroit.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And then New Jersey has a bunch. They have Jankowski, Jimmy Vesey, Tyler Wotherspoon, and Gauthier. Freddie Gauthier, that is.
Oh yeah, right.
And I mean, they're gonna be an interesting team to watch this year too, because they have so many young forwards. So I could see a couple of those guys. I know Wotherspoon's a defenseman, but I could see maybe one of those three sticking with the team just as kind of like a veteran presence.
Yeah, they're gonna need depth players for sure. So it's not surprising that they got so many PTOs, and they could be a team that swoops in and signs, the Galchenyuks or the other PTOs that look good. Yeah.
And then the Penguins have both Barkowski and Brian Boyle on PTOs. Barkowski is only interesting because he used to play for the Canucks. And then St. Louis, I actually really like the PTO for James Neal, and it's not just because he scored a hat trick last night. I actually liked it before. I don't know, he just feels like a St. Louis player to me. Like I could see James Neal in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And then also
like a prawn, like in the forest there.
Yeah. I don't know. I just see it working out. And then Toronto with both Gusev and Hosang. Obviously, Toronto needs to replace wingers. Both of those are pretty low risk.
I like the Gusev one. I think he could stay.
Yeah. And Hosang played junior with Tavares, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I think they're probably banking on that. But yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah, I think my battery's about to die, so we timed this perfectly.
Okay, there you go.
So yeah, I think we will do this again soon, because training camps are going to be wrapping up pretty soon, and we can talk about who made the teams and do a little bit of predictions as things go. I'm sure things are going to happen. Stuff's going to happen.
Yeah, hopefully next time we'll have some Canuck signings to talk about.
Exactly. Okay, well, here we go. Until next time.